Companies large and small will gather at CES to showcase innovations in the consumer tech space. So, what key trends will be shaping growth in the year ahead? Here with me to discuss the tech themes taking center stage this year is Kevan Yalowitz. He's the Global Industry Managing Director for Accenture Software and Platforms Business. Now, Kevan, it's so great to see you and another year of CES. What are the key trends on Accenture's radar this year?
Yeah, thanks, Alexis. Great to be here. So we're tracking four major themes for CES this year, which is likely to be much different than the past couple of years, given that 2 years ago was totally virtual, and then last year was scaled down. So this year is going to feel a little bit back to normal. The first theme is the metaverse. We are in this very interesting period of moving from talking about what the technology can do to tangible consumer use cases. And what's very interesting is our data is telling us that there's a perception shift for consumers as well, with 55% wanting to be active users of the metaverse in the future, and 90% of those wanting to be active users in the next year. And look, this isn't wildly surprising. If we look across virtual worlds today, there's around 400 million monthly active users. So people are dipping their toes into the water, and this is starting to get real for many users. Gaming is still the leading area of engagement today, but we're starting to see new use cases emerge, with 70% of consumers telling us that they're interested in engaging in fitness, retail activities, travel, and even healthcare in the metaverse over the next 5 years. So there's going to be a lot of change in the metaverse coming very, very soon.
I'm interested a little bit in that perception shift because, last year at CES, the metaverse hype was real and it dominated the conference. But we kind of seen over the last year, Meta Platforms has really struggled with their shift into that business. We've seen a lot of volatility with crypto and NFTs. I think the things that the metaverse was associated with, there was a lot of initial skepticism. So can you talk about that shift a little bit and what challenges really lie ahead for these use cases and adoption moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So many of the technology barriers, expensive hardware, connectivity have really gone away, particularly in developed markets. But what gets us exciting at Accenture is what we've actually seen. We've onboarded 150,000 employees entirely in the metaverse during COVID. And what we've seen is that once people have had the opportunity to use technology to change how they work, they start having meetings in the metaverse. And we think that's going to start to happen in the consumer use case in the next couple of years.
So shifting gears a little bit, we've also seen that car makers have really become sort of the marquee attendees at CES. What does the growth of the auto industry's presence at this conference really demonstrate about the tech trends in that sector?
Yeah, CES is starting to feel a bit like a car show. And what's really driving that is the shift of automobiles to being software defined. And what that means is that a car has an operating system that allows a really distinct user experience, but it goes beyond just a better user experience. It goes towards actionable telemetry that allows you to diagnose maintenance issues before an end user maybe even knows they exist. And then also some interesting software sales opportunities to enable software-defined upgrades to cars. This is something that Tesla is very much doing today. What's interesting, though, is building an OS for a vehicle is really expensive. We estimate it's $4 billion to build an OS, and then another $6 billion in maintenance over the span of its lifetime. So we're going to see some OEMs go it alone, but we're also going to see some OEMs coalesce around existing OEM or OSs that exist in the market.
No, that's really interesting. And, as you're saying, a lot of this tech is being driven by software. And, we've seen a lot of disruptions in the chip industry, though, which has kind of been helping drive up those prices as well over the last few years. What research do you have about this easing at all, and how can OEMs really navigate this tricky environment to capture this growth?
Yeah, what we're tracking is high tech players, particularly the chip manufacturers, really focusing on sustainability as a way to manage costs during the ongoing chip shortage. What's really interesting is that we've seen a doubling of the cost associated to build a chip every year over the past 3 years. And that's created this real need for high-tech players to focus on cost efficiency, particularly driven by sustainability goals as they sort of accelerate the path to market for their products. Some are getting really creative in using digital twins in the metaverse to look end to end at the manufacturing process of chips to figure out where can they remove inefficiencies so that they can control what's in their control.
Yeah, that's great. Now we've hit the big two, we've hit metaverse, autos. What other key themes do you think investors should be aware of this year?
Yeah, the other topic area that we're watching that we think is going to play big at CES is the attention economy. And this is somewhat related to the metaverse, but there is an all-time high in terms of competition for consumer share of time. And our data tells us that consumers are a bit fatigued with this. 86% of them say that they want one platform to simplify their entertainment experience, which is somewhat ironic because we did move from a world that was bundled to a world that's very unbundled.
We've come full circle, I feel like.
We've totally come full circle. And consumers, interestingly, are trying to consolidate by canceling subscriptions. So 1/3 of those that we surveyed just this past quarter tell us that they've unsubscribed from one of the major 5 streaming services. And another third want to be able to take their preferences or their profile across streaming services so that their experience is personalized. They don't have to open a new app and then choose everything again. This is going to get more complex with the metaverse. It's a new avenue for people to allocate their time to, and we're going to see increased frenzy around creating good experiences with great contact to attract both consumer share of time, but also the dollars that come from that. The other derivative that we're tracking out of this competition for eyeballs is ad dollars, because ad dollars follow eyeballs. And in a potential recession, what we see, right, is we see ad dollars declining, but the competition for digital ad dollars is going to be at an all-time high. And we're going to see advertisers experimenting with advertising in new mediums, such as the metaverse.
Well, Kevan, thanks so much for your insights today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And you can follow all our CES coverage over at investors.com. For Investors Business Daily, I'm Alexis Garcia.